who loves the beloved and love itself. Amen. Please be seated. I'm not sure where to start. Do you want a story about my dog or a story about the history of psychology or social psychology? Story about my dog or social psychology? Who's the dog? Who's for the dog? Who's for the social psychology? It's about evenly split. I'll do both. Should I do both? I was in the doggy park on Friday. River's annoyed at me because I've been really busy recently and we haven't been to the doggy park as much as she would like. There was this one moment where I was throwing a ball with her chuck it. It goes really far. And she just launched off, but all of a sudden she kind of came up short, limping. And there were a couple of other people around the park who saw this, and they kind of knew what happened. She'd hit something, or her paw had been smarting. And they all let out a kind of an audible, ah. So I went over and I got her. She just sat there looking at me saying, "Can you fix this?" And I'm like, "I hope I can." And it was just she picked up a little thorn on the inside of her pad. I just had to take it out and put it in the trash, and she launched herself off again very excitedly. That's not the story. But I liked it. The story is when I first started taking her to the doggy park because she had various anxieties around socialization. It was anxiety-inducing for me because I wasn't sure how she was going to be with the other dogs. Was she going to behave? What was she going to be like? And I wanted to change her behavior. And I worried about it. The more I've got to know her, the more I've realized I didn't need to change her behavior. I needed to change my behavior. I needed to let my anxiety go, and I needed to learn to help her feel safe in that place. So the real thing about the story from Friday is that she played with all the other dogs, and she did perfectly fine, and she had a nice time, and she had fun, apart from the thorn, which we got rid of really easily. And I realized it's me often, and my behavior that I can manage around my dog, which gives her a very different experience of life. So then how long do you think it takes to change a habit? Anybody know? I can't hear, wait. 21 days back here. Somebody said 8 weeks over here. Do you know where the number 21 days comes from? Have you heard the 21 days number? Anybody? Yes? It's from a book from 1960 by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. And he observed in some of his patients that they began to be able to change their habits of life at about the 21-day point of trying. It was not a scientific study. It was not a statistical study. It's just an observation. But somehow it's got fixed in people's minds that it takes 21 days to change a habit. There's been a lot of work done on the idea of habits. Just last year, there was a report that came out in a European Journal of Social Psychology, which says it takes anywhere from 18 to 254 days to change a habit. And there are all sorts of different factors. How disciplined or disorganized a person are you? What is the habit? Does it release dopamine in your brain because they're more difficult to shift than the other ones? Do you have some kind of strategy for shifting the habit or not? There's a really wide range. The average was 66 days. What they all agree is it's possible to change habits. It's possible to change our way of being in the world. Sometimes it takes real effort, but we can do it. I think this partly because it was really interesting. At the beginning of the pandemic, overnight, we were all asked to change every habit all at once. And we managed to do it. Yes, there was a very powerful external motivator for that change of habit, but we reinvented church, we reinvented grocery shopping, we reinvented our lives, and some of those reinventions are staying with us. We changed everything overnight. It's possible to take radical action to make our lives different. Okay, I'm going to park that for a moment and then look at the gospel. Is that okay? Jesus comes back to his disciples and they say, there's this person casting out demons in your name. And we told him to stop because he's not one of us. And he shouldn't have the right to do that. And Jesus looks at them completely puzzled and is like, if he can cast out a demon in my name, then good on him. That's great. He can't possibly hurt me afterwards if he's genuinely helped somebody in my name. What are you talking about? And here we learn a lesson about the economics of grace. It doesn't work like the marketplace. There is no limit to the extent of grace. It is not owned by a particular person. It is not a product that you can sell. It's freely available to all. And anybody that understands the love of God can share it. So that's the first thing I notice here. But as Jesus is talking to his disciples, he kind of realizes that there's a deeper teachable moment. He realizes that they are focusing on other people. They're focusing on what this other guy is doing. He's casting out demons in my name and we don't like it. We want to control this person. We want to stop him doing our work. We want to manage and manipulate him in some way. And Jesus is like, no, you're completely misunderstanding something incredibly important. Don't put a stumbling block in the way of anybody who is helping. Don't trip them up just because you feel out of control, because you're not in charge of whatever they're doing. It'd be better if a millstone was put around your neck and you were thrown into the sea than you do that. And Jesus has got some harsh things to say in this moment. He goes on to say, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. If your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. If your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. Some of the difficult lines that are coming from Jesus. Is he actually asking us to do that? Sometimes if we read the scriptures in a particular way, we take his words literally, but I really don't think, even in the context of the text, he means us to do this. He's using hyperbolic language. He's using extraordinary language to say, I would like you to understand that what I'm about to tell you is incredibly important. And I want you to take radical action. The radical action I want you to take is not in somebody else's life, it's in yours. He doesn't say cut somebody else's foot off if their foot is causing them to sin, or gouge somebody else's eye out if their eye is causing them to sin, or cut somebody's hand off if their hand is causing them to sin. He says, do this to yourself. How many of us in our culture look around us and see all the problems of other people? All the things that we think would be so good if we could just fix them in that person or that group of people. How many of our laws do we structure in such a way that we can attack somebody else and see them as the root of a problem? Jesus is saying two things in this text that I think are really important. The economics of grace do not work like the marketplace. Grace is limitless and is available to everyone freely. And take care of yourself and your own behavior before you think about somebody else's. Look at your own motivations and ask yourself, can I change my habits of mind and heart? Can I change how I interact with the world? Can I change how I react to somebody else? Because, the one thing that social psychologists don't say is that it's possible for you to change somebody else's habits. Does that make sense? You can help somebody if they're willing to change. You can be a sponsor in AA, you can be a psychotherapist, you can be a helper, but the first thing that has to happen is that the person wants to change themselves. And I'm inviting you along with Jesus today to contemplate changing yourselves. And the hyperbolic language he uses is there to underline just how important this is. This is about life and death. This is really important. Examine your hearts. Ask yourselves how your reactions damage others before you ask how their behavior is damaging you. Think about what you might change in your life and your heart before you think about what you'd like to change in everybody else around you. So I'm going to try and sum up now. Jesus is saying that grace doesn't work like the marketplace. Nobody's in control, and nobody's selling it. Nobody has a monopoly. That's not the way God works. The love of God is the most liberally available resource on the planet. And any of us can access it and share it. If we are accessing and sharing the love and the grace of God, we cannot possibly damage somebody in the name of God the next moment. So, recognize it's freely available. Recognize also that personal change is possible. Social psychologists tell us that that's the case, and spiritual guides tell us that that's the case as well. But it's possible in your own heart. You can't make it happen for somebody else. And you need to access the liberal grace of God in order to make that possible. And there's one thing I'd like to end with, which is many social psychologists, many addiction specialists, many habit-changing gurus will tell you that the first step to really transforming yourself is mindfulness, is being aware of what you're doing in the first place. The first step of 12 steps for Alcoholics Anonymous is to acknowledge that you have a problem. Becoming mindful is the first step to changing your life. And so I would like to say that the way that we can access the grace of God and transform our lives from the inside out is by starting with prayer. Do you have a prayer practice that takes you into the themes of the love and grace of God on a regular basis? Do you have a daily prayer practice, even a weekly one? If you don't, we offer these things because we're a cathedral. We have them available all week. You can get them online, and you can come and join our centering prayer classes and our meditation practices, and we'll help you. We also can provide advice. We have spiritual directors, I'm noticing them dotted around the congregation right here, who can give spiritual advice. We have clergy who can advise you on how to develop a mindfulness or prayer practice that is the first step to genuine transformation in the grace of God. Amen.